All right, shalom, shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom.
It's the brother Ahpayach,
Yabayan.
brother Yabayan, man. Back at it again from Louisiana, here to bring out this lesson on the topic, the notorious topic of Deuteronomy 28. Lord willing, by the time this class concludes, you will have a good idea of an overview of the blessings and the curses and the contents thereof. We're gonna jump right into it.
Right. All right, so the overview of Deuteronomy 28, we're going to talk about the history of the journey, like how do we get to this point and needing to have this law out, and we're going to go through the blessings for obedience, and then we're going to go through the curses for disobedience. So one of the first things that you need to understand when reading the scriptures and trying to understand how we come to where we are is what the purpose of Deuteronomy 28 is. One of the main things Deuteronomy 28 talks about is learning of our stipulations. And that's so important because when we learn of our stipulations, we understand what the conditions of what we signed up for was.
Right.
If you give me that in Romans 15:4.
Romans 15:4 says, "For whatsoever things were written for our learning, that we through patience of the scriptures might have hope."
Right, because we are trying to learn that which we have struggled so hard to understand.
Right.
So we keep going back through it in order that we may learn it. Keep going. Bring that out.
1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 11. "Now all these things happened unto them for ensamples, and they were written for our admonition."
Right. So because what's written for our admonition means that there's a rebuke for it. That's something that we want. We're being told through a rebuke, to be advised, but to be advised in such a way that we understand what to do and what not to do.
Okay.
The other purpose of Deuteronomy 28 is about having a record of what was in the covenant, right? Bring that out in Exodus.
Exodus 24 verse 3 says, "And Moses came unto the Lord," Salakia, "and Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord, and all the judgments, and all the people answered with one voice and said, All the words which the Lord hath said, we will do."
So this statement here is going to continue in our generations, right? And so you're going to see this reiterated again. Bring out verse 7, if you will.
Verse 7, "And he took the book of the covenant."
He took the book of the covenant. Keep going.
"And read it in the audience of the people."
Right.
"And they said, All that the Lord hath said,
right,
we will do and be obedient."
So what you get the understanding that the Deuteronomy 28, you have blessings for obedience is because we had already said we was going to be obedient to come through this covenant, right? We had already acknowledged that we was going to be doing that according to what we agreed to, right?
Okay.
Let's go to the next slide, right? So I want to be able to kind of just briefly touch who's in Deuteronomy so that we understand what we're up against, right? So you got Moses, right? Moses was a Levite leader, right? We learn about Moses in Exodus. We got the children of Israel. This is all 12 tribes: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Zebulun, Issachar, Dan, Gad, Naphtali, Joseph, Benjamin, and Asher, right? And then there's this aspect about the heathen nations, right? So as you start from the beginning of Deuteronomy, really starting in Exodus, because that's where Moses comes into play, you start realizing that these are nations that are there that you have to be cautious of. You have to know who your enemy is. You have to understand who you're going to be up against when you walk into a land that you're not familiar with, right? Give me that quote.
It says, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles.
Right.
If you know yourself, but not the enemy, For every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will neither, Salakia, if you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle.
So what that's saying is it's very crucial to know who your enemy is,
right?
So that you can take victory over many or all the battles that's coming your way. But when you have no understanding of it, you're learning your lesson through failures of key people and things that you should have known about your enemy. So we want to be able to know a little about who's going to be in Deuteronomy so that we can know what we ought to do when we come to these people, right? So you have the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, and the Canaanites have multiple subnations under them.
Right.
You have the Perizzites, the Hivites, Moab, Ammon, Amalek, and you have the Egyptians, right? Keep going. Going to the next slide, all right? So let's look at this timeline right here. So we're persecuted in Egypt 430 years, and then we have the Exodus. The Lord sends Moses to let my people go. We go out of Exodus. We're making our way to the path of the wilderness. We come in contact with Amalek. That was one of the enemies. Remember that, right? Amalek, Lord says he will have war with them forever. But we continue to move forward. As we move forward, we get into the wilderness, right? This is where the first, when we come to the mountain to where Sinai, right? After we get from Sinai, we are witnessing the first of the commandments on the tablets, right? So Moses goes up, he's talking with the Lord, and he gets the tablets. He comes back down. Aaron went off and got them worshiping the golden calf, right? So now we're around Exodus 32. Then Moses breaks the tablets, right? Then we go back up into the mountain, right? Second set of commandments on the tablets are made. Now, and at this time, the covenant is made also. And it's something I want you to remember is that Exodus, Numbers, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy are happening in sync. They're really happening around at the same time, right? It's just different parts of the 40 years in which this is unfolding, right? Then you have the death of Moses, and then that transition of leadership to Joshua. You see that arrow continues on because, as we know, we start getting into the histories and the kings, and then we go into the prophets, and then we get into the New Testament, and then from there we are looking at Christ, and then his second coming back in Revelation. All right. So let's first kind of understand what do we mean when we say the word Deuteronomy. It was always one of those longer, large words growing up, and so we need to really get a good understanding. If you give me what it's talking about here.
So it says the fifth book of the Pentateuch of the late 1400s, Deuteronomy of the Wycliffe Bible, from late Latin Deuteronomium, from ecclesiastical Greek Deuteronomion, literally the second law.
Right, second law. So understanding that this is the second time this stuff is being said. Keep going.
From deuteros, or second, plus nomos, law, reading on, a mistranslation of Hebrew, mishneh, haturazah, Hazaroth, a copy of this law.
A copy of this law. So essentially what the term Deuteronomy is getting at is a second copy of this law. So when was the first portion of that law given? It's the oral law, and then from that portion, the tablet, the first tablet that come in becomes your quote unquote second law. The aspect that it's being broken is just showing the frustration of Moses, but the second time this stuff is being repeated is when it actually starts to be written down, right? And put on the tablets. The first is when it's been spoken throughout the generations, right? One of the things that we got to remember is it's a second law is because we don't always get it the first time. Give me that in Job 33:14.
Job 33:14, it says, "For God speaketh once, yea, twice, yet man perceiveth it not.
Right, because we be going off.
Right.
So the Lord does what he can to make sure he does his part in explaining exactly how he wants to operate in relation to us. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Keep going. So a good question is, well, God got it all figured out and he brought us out of Egypt. Why not just immediately put us in the land of milk and honey? Why not? Why do we have to go through this extravagant pin the tail on a donkey kind of course when we're dealing with trying to get to a land that was supposed to be a healing for us, right? But I'll tell you why. It was because we needed to be refined before entering into the land of milk and honey. Instructions were given at least 20 to 30 times up to this point about how we ought to act. And this is from the Lord. Now, you got to understand that, right? So let's get Deuteronomy 4, 5 through 6 real quick. Right? We got to understand that we're trying to be refined. Milk is supposed to be a nutritional value for you, right? And so what it has to do is go in and break down in order to build up. Same thing with honey. It goes in and it strengthens your weak points, giving you good nutritional value. This is what that land was supposed to be for us. And the Lord was feeding us, spoon feeding us, shall I say, the instructions on how to operate in the land of milk and honey. Milk being your law, honey in and of itself being the sweetness or being the fullness of operating in a power position, making you strong, yet being sweet in the aspect of delivering your words to your people with compassion.
Right.
Delivering, being firm, but yet telling them what thus says the Lord in a way that it's received, right? You remember the prophets always say, the book was sweet in my mouth, but it was bitter in my stomach.
Right.
The bitterness of it is the digestion aspect, because there are some things that were hard for us to understand, right? Let's get Deuteronomy 4, 5 through 6 real quick.
The book of Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 5 says, behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that ye should do so in the land whither ye go to possess it.
Right. So again, the Lord is now bringing out what his directions was, what he's telling you what he's done about preparing you to go into this land. Keep going.
Verse 6, keep therefore and do them.
Right.
For this is your wisdom.
Right, because this is how you're going to get wise. Keep going.
And your understanding in the sight of the nations.
What nations? Because if you just hold that it was just us going in there, then you've already misunderstood where we're coming from.
Right. He
took us out of Egypt to go into the land most desired, the glory of the nations. And we'll get to that, get to that part, right? But keep going on that.
Which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely.
What you gonna say? What?
Surely.
Right, because their exclamation about how you started it off as such a small people and turned into such something that's to be marveled, they're gonna be astonished by it. Keep going.
This great nation is a wise and understanding people. Right,
because that's what that honey did. It allowed you to get an understanding. Let's get Deuteronomy 8, 2 and 3 real quick.
The book of Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse number 2. And thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God led thee these 40 years in the wilderness.
Right. So he's telling you that he led you years in the wilderness, 40 to be exact. Now keep going. Why? Why did he do this?
To humble thee.
To humble you, right? He wanted you to understand, don't feel like because he's doing this for you that there aren't requirements still that you have to do, right? Keep going.
And prove thee.
Right, because we know that the Lord don't do anything without being circumspect about what he's going to do. And so he wanted you to understand the process that you got to go through, because when you get out here, this is what you got to do for these people coming that'll be round about you. You got to prove different people. You got to prove your brethren that's around you.
Right.
Keep going.
to know what was in thine heart,
right?
whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no.
Right, because our heart is deceitful above all things, right? And so what he's trying to get us to understand is that we have to be dependent on him. This is why those laws, statutes, and judgments are there, because they're our guideline and able to instruct us correctly. Keep going.
Right. Verse 3, and he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger.
Right. He wanted you to understand that man doesn't what? Live by bread alone. Right. But every word of the word of God. Right. Keep going on there.
And fed thee with manna, which thou knewest not,
right?
Neither did thy fathers know,
right?
That he might make thee know that man does not live by bread only.
This is what Christ was repeating right here.
Right.
You don't live day to day about just trying to survive physically by the food. There is a spiritual aspect and a mental aspect that you have to go through that comes only from you being in tune with the Lord.
Right.
And he's trying to get you to understand that. This is the wilderness. Remember, wilderness is a synonym for affliction. You go through these affliction in order to bring you closer to the Lord. Keep going.
But by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live.
Right. Okay, let's get this next one. This is going to be Ezekiel here. Let's get Ezekiel real quick. So he's refining us. Now he's given us two instructions, right? Two sets of instructions, right? And I'm saying two from the standpoint, one in Deuteronomy 4, one in Deuteronomy 8, by what we just read. And he's showing the necessity of why we were there in the wilderness. We needed to be humble, right? Right? Bring that out in Ezekiel.
Ezekiel chapter 20 and verse 4. Without judge them, son of man. Without judge them. Cause them to know these abominations of their fathers.
Right, because see, here the Lord wants us to understand something. He is a compassionate father. And he wants you to know the history that made him choose or operate in the way that he does. Keep going on that.
Verse 5, and say unto them, thus saith the Lord God, in the day when I chose Israel and lifted up mine hand unto the seed of the house of Jacob and made myself known unto them in the land of Egypt, when I lifted up mine hand unto them, saying, I am the Lord your God.
Right. So he's again going back to show you the history. I chose you, Israel. And I lifted up my hand to you. That means I brought you from the captivity you were in, right? And I established to be your God. Keep going.
Verse 6. In the day that I lifted up mine hand unto them to bring them forth of the land of Egypt into a land that I espied for them.
Right. That means he sought that land out for us.
Right.
He was already looking out for us. He's showing forethought about what it meant for him to put that emphasis on choosing who we are. Keep going.
Flowing with milk and honey.
Right. Again, getting to that law, getting into that fatness of that land. Keep going.
Which is the glory of all lands.
See, everybody wanted this peace.
Right.
Keep going.
Verse 7. Then said I unto them, cast ye away every man the abominations of his eyes, and defile not yourselves with the idols of Egypt.
Right.
I am the Lord your God.
But see, here was the problem. We had spent so much time in Egypt under the hand of wicked rulership that it was in our DNA to think about the gods that the Egyptians served.
Right.
And the Lord was trying to tell us, cast that away. Because remember, this was what he said to the fathers. If you keep reading down in Ezekiel 20, he talks to the children and talks to their seed in there. Right? Keep going.
Verse 8, but they rebelled against me.
The fathers rebelled against them. He told them, listen, cast your idols away. Right? Keep going.
And would not hearken unto me.
We didn't want to listen. Keep going.
They did not every man cast away their abominations of their eyes. Neither did they forsake the idols of Egypt. Then I said, I will pour out my fury upon them. I will accomplish my anger against them in the midst of the land of Egypt.
Right. But what happened?
Verse 9, but I wrought for my name's sake.
See, you got to remember that the Lord is not going to mess up his honor and his glory are attached to his own name.
Right.
When you're reading in the Exodus, he makes a proclamation of his name, right? And he passes by Moses and he makes that proclamation. This is what he's trying to tell you. These other nations try to pollute the Lord's name, but they don't know the Lord like we know. We are near and dear to him. They're thinking that they are the Lord and they think they're equal with them. But the Lord is saying not so. Keep going.
That it should not be polluted before the heathen, among whom they were, in whose sight I made myself known unto them, in bringing them forth out of the land of Egypt.
Right. So one of the reasons, again, getting back to why we're in the wilderness is because of that affliction. He's trying to get that idol spirit out of us, right?
Right.
Wisdom of Solomon 14 tells us that the idols were the beginning of evil, right? So we want you to be able to understand that this evil that was surrounding us put us in such a situation to where we needed to be afflicted and be cast from that. Give me that next point real quick. So bring that out in Isaiah 48 and 10, right? Because as we understand what Egypt was for us, we start to understand the importance of really depending on the Lord. Because when we're in that wilderness, we start forsaking the fact that we can't come out by the hand of the Lord and started to desire that which was given to us by our captors. But bring that out real quick.
Isaiah 48 and verse 10, behold, I have refined thee, but not with silver. I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction.
The reason why he refined thee, but not with silver, is because it's easy for us to be like, oh, we're the children of the Lord, and think that we get a shining outward appearance without the work attached to the Lord, without the work necessary to prove ourselves to the Lord. Right. People take silver and think about silver as it's lower than like a gold, but nonetheless, it did represent some level of riches and wealth and power if you still had it. And with us coming out by the hand of the Lord, what he's saying is, I'm refining thee, but it ain't with silver. I gotta put you through how silver is actually made, which is the furnace of affliction. Right. Bring out that the next one in Exodus.
Exodus chapter 23 and verse 13. And in all things that I have said unto you, be circumspect.
Right. Be circumspect. You want to be in a position that you're being thoughtful and considerate about what the Lord is trying to tell us to do. Keep going.
And make no mention of the name of other gods. Neither let it be heard out of thy mouth.
Right. Because when we get into what it means to be circumspect, we're getting to a deep consideration about how the Lord is really harping on the fact that he don't want no mention of these other gods coming out of your mouth.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He don't want you to be thinking about them at all. And this is a big thing as we're approaching into Deuteronomy 28. Give me the definition of circumspect. It's your next point.
Okay. The word circumspect, cautious, wary, literally looking about on all sides, deliberate, guarded, well considered.
He wants you to really think about what you're going to say when you're dealing with the Lord and comparing him to so-called idols. Be very, very cautious, right? Keep it going. I want you to take a look at this map here, all right? I want you to understand where we were. We come out of the land of Goshen. We got that law in Sinai, and we got these tablets here, at least the second set of them coming up between, you see Hazarah and Kadesh Barnea, right? According to Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 1 and 2, all right? Keep going. All right, so now we're going to get into the blessings. I gave you a little history on the journey, and now I want you to understand what the blessings or obedience are. All right, let's look at verse 1 and 2. Bring that out.
The book of Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 1. And it shall come to pass If thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, and the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth.
The Lord was telling us not only did he despise a land that was gloried above all nations, but he also was going to put us in that spot, right? You got to think about when you see the term commandments, these are rules,
right?
Don't be scared by that term commandment because it's large, like, you know, multi-syllable. It's observe and to do all his rules. He just wants you to follow the rules that he told you to follow,
right?
And that you said you would follow,
right?
Bring out verse 2.
Verse 2, and all these blessings shall come upon thee and overtake thee,
right?
If thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God.
Right. Come on to the next slide. Right. So what we got here is we're going to cover verses 3, 4, 11, and 12, right? The first part of what we want to cover is the work and prosperity as a part of the blessings that he said he was going to bring out. Let's get it.
Verse 3, blessed shalt thou be in the city, and blessed shalt thou be in the field.
What does this mean? This means where you go, what you're doing, you're going to be blessed. The work that you have is going to be blessed. You're going to prosper. Give me that in Deuteronomy 8.
It's the book of Deuteronomy chapter 8 and verse 18. But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth.
See, you think you can get this on your own, but the Lord is telling you when you get into this land of milk and honey, don't get high-minded.
Right.
This is all by his will. This is why he's saying, blessed shall thou be in the city and blessed shall thou be in the field. But remember where your blessings come from. Let's get the next one.
Right.
So you got work and prosperity. Come on. Now he's going to talk about health and posterity, right? Give me that.
Verse 4, blessed shalt thou, blessed shall be the fruit of thy body.
What the fruit of your body represent is the seed line that come from you. The Lord is dealing with you in such a way that if he's blessing you like this, he wants your generations to be blessed.
Right.
What's that precept on that?
Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 13. And he will love thee and bless thee and multiply thee.
Do what?
And multiply thee.
That's your seeds line, right? Because keep going.
He will also bless the fruit of thy womb.
Do you realize that in order for you to be multiplied and for your womb to be blessed, that your body has to be in good shape?
Right.
Your body has to be a prime where it was supposed to be when he created you. He's identifying right here that you're not gonna be sick. You're gonna deliver how I wanted you to deliver. You're gonna have a healthy life.
Right.
Right? Keep going. We want to talk about the sustenance, right? Keep read that in verse 4.
Verse 4, continuing on. And the fruit of thy ground, and the fruit of thy cattle,
right?
And the increase of thy kind.
Kind is a type of heifer. Keep going.
And the flocks of thy sheep.
Right. So one thing I want you to understand is that when he's talking about blessing the ground that you're in and the fruit of thy cattle, he's saying that even the livestock that you have will be healthy, that you will be able to process them accordingly so that you can eat with the fullness of how that animal was supposed to make you feel. That protein that comes in, the nutritional value will be optimal. Okay?
Right.
Keep going.
The book of Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse 13, the B clause. And the fruit of thy land, thy corn, and thy wine, and thine oil, the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep, in the land which he sware unto thy fathers to give thee.
So what he's saying, and all of this right here, your work and your prosperity is going to be blessed. Remember that the wealth, the power you got to get wealth comes from him. Your body is going to be healthy and your kids are going to be multiplied, and then they're going to come out healthy. And then the meat that you're going to consume and the vegetable and plants that you eat are all going to be in their optimal states.
Right.
Because you are in a optimal state of blessing. You're operating how he wanted you to operate under those laws, statutes, and commandments, right? Let's go into the next. All right, so when we talk about stockpile reserves, we are talking about the basket, store, and storehouse, right? A stockpile in and of itself is about the aspect of having enough, right? And this one right here actually goes into quite a couple meanings, right? A basket in and of itself is an instrument used to gain, to hold, to secure. You know, when you look it up in the blue letter, it's talking about things that they would collect from the soil, right? When you look at about a store, you're talking about a place of security. You're talking about a place that to where, like, if you're taking what you have out of the soil and you're able to sell it, you know, you have a place of business to be able to go to sell it. And then also it's talking about right here in storehouses for those who didn't have. You have a place to be charitable now, right? Those are the in today's time frame, we call them pantry stores or pantry homes in the hood and stuff like that, right? Give me those verses.
This is verse 5 of Deuteronomy 28. Blessed shall be thy basket and thy store.
Right, keep going.
Verse 8, the Lord shall command the blessing upon thee. The Lord shall command the blessing upon thee in thy storehouses and in all that thou settest thine hand unto.
Right.
And he shall bless thee in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee.
Okay, so we're going to go into a couple of precepts because I want you to understand a couple of deeper meanings, right? So you have the basket, store, and storehouse as a physical aspect, right? Let's get Proverbs 6:6 real quick. Right? And so the physical aspect is he's blessed you with the ability to be diligent, to go and collect, right? You're not being what the scriptures call a bum, right? You're not being a sluggard, right? Give me Proverbs 6:6.
It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 6 and verse 6.
Bring it out.
Go to the ant, thou sluggard.
Right.
Consider her ways and be wise.
Right. So what he's saying in this regard is what you got to understand about ants are they prepare ahead of time.
Right.
What he's saying right here, when your basket and your store and your storehouses are blessed, your mindset allowed you to go out and prepare ahead of time. Right. Give me Proverbs 13:4.
Book of Proverbs, chapter 13, and verse number 4. The soul of the sluggard desireth and hath nothing.
Right, because when you aren't blessed, you're lazy.
Right.
You're in a position to where you feel just torn. You don't feel like you got the energy to get up and go. But keep going on that.
But the soul of the diligent shall be made fat.
The soul of the diligent is going to be made fat. That's going to be, you're going to get up in the morning and be like, let's fresh set of hours. You know what I'm saying? That's what he's getting to, right? And then there's a place for charity. Deuteronomy 15 and 10.
It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 15 and verse number 10.
Okay.
Thou shalt surely give him, and thine heart shall be and thine heart shall not be grieved when thou givest unto him, because that for this thing the Lord thy God shall bless thee in all thy works and in all that thou puttest thine hand unto.
You are going to be in a position of wanting to bless others. That's the whole purpose on a physical level of having excess,
right? Is
that you can help other people, right? Now, when we look at the double meaning, the mental aspect of it, this deals with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding.
Right.
Your basket is the knowledge. That's your means. You got information in your head that you are learning about whom the Lord is, whom the people you are dealing with, that the Lord has in this land of milk and honey with you, right? You have a knowledge about who the tribes are, how y'all are related, right? And then you have wisdom that comes with that. Your wisdom is your store. Your wisdom is that being able to deliver a good word in due season, right? Yeah. And your storehouse is understanding, thinking about how you are able to preserve that which can't come unto you, right? Which is why storehouse is a part of security, right? Let's get Deuteronomy 6:7-8.
the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 6, verse 7. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children,
right,
and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. Verse 8. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand, and thy shall be, Salakia, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes.
Your knowledge is within your mind, and your mind has to have the capacity to teach the next generation.
Right.
Okay. Let's get Sirach 21 and 26. Right. Knock, you got something to throw in by all means.
Con, you know, you was on the point of your mind. Of your mind and whatnot, and you made me think that your mind is like a knowledge basket, right. So the faculties of your mind will be blessed even in that regard, right? As it is a container of the information that you should hold, that you should apply, right? That you should teach your children, and so on. You know,
right? Excellent, yeah. Knowledge basket. That's, as a matter of fact, we got the saying that when knowledge broken into two words is a no ledger. Right. It's the form in which knowledge is stored. It's with the words and the meanings that's what a no ledger is. Right.
Exactly. This is Sirach chapter 21 and verse 26. Verse 26. The heart of fools is in their mouth. Right. But the mouth of the wise is in their heart. Because it does well to be continually having your storehouse full of wisdom. Because that comes out. What does the scripture say about the issues of life flow from the heart? And if the heart is uttering wisdom, then the issues of life about understanding how to be wise in connection with the Lord, right? Okay. Let's get Matthew 13 and 8. Book of Matthew, chapter 13, and verse number 8. But other fell into good ground and brought forth fruit, some an 100-fold, right? Some 60-fold, some 30-fold. Because what he's talking about is the parable of the sower. Right. You don't get stuff in your basket, the crops that grow up, unless you have good soil. Right. And so what he's saying is when you've done what you're supposed to do, some is going to yield 100, 60, or 30. But in this wisdom, you're going to your crops are going to show some fruit of goodness. Right. Okay. All right. Let's get Proverbs 15 and 23. It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 15, and verse 23. A man hath the joy by the answer of his mouth, right? And a word spoken in due season. How good it is. Right, because that person was able to go into their storehouse and pull out something for each occasion. That's what that's about, right? Now, when you get into the spiritual level of it, this is where it really starts making a bigger difference, because this is your possession. This deals with your protection and your connection, right? Let's get to Numbers 35 real quick. I'm gonna show you something. This is interesting as we was doing our study that we come across this. Right. So Numbers 35 deals with the Levites, the city of the Levites, and it deals also with the cities of refuge. Right. Let's bring out verse 2 and 3 real quick. It's the book of Numbers, chapter 35 and verse 2. Command the children of Israel that they give unto the Levites the inheritance of their possession cities to dwell in. Salakia. And ye shall give also unto the Levites suburbs for the cities round about them. So what's happening here is the priest of the Lord is getting something in their basket. Keep going. Verse 3. And the cities shall they have to dwell in, and the suburbs of them shall be for good cattle. Salakia shall be for their cattle and for their goods and for all their beasts. Right, because they had a job to do for the tribes, right? Keep going. Drop down to verse 7 and 8. Verse 7. So all the cities which ye shall give the Levites shall be 48 cities. Them shall ye give with their suburbs. Verse 8, and the cities which ye shall give shall be of the possession of the children of Israel.
They're coming from you. Keep going.
Right. From them that have many.
We talked about what charity was. And he goes back to tell you, even when you get to your spiritual connection as what you're supposed to give to the Levites, when you have enough, you give more. Keep going.
From them that have many, ye shall give many. But from them that have few, ye shall give few. Every one shall give of his cities unto the Levites according to his inheritance, which he inherited.
Right. So the point I want you to understand about the connection with the spiritual connection with the basket and the store, this right here deals with you understanding that your basket and store is to your connection with the Lord. The Levites were the connection for the children of Israel to the Lord.
Right.
That's what your storehouse is. That's what your basket is. It's a way for you to be connected to the Lord. Now let's look at Numbers 35, 26 through 28, right?
Verse 26. But if the slayer shall at any time come without the border of the city of his refuge, whither he was fled, and the revenger of blood find him without the borders of the city of his refuge, and the revenger of blood kill the slayer, he shall not be guilty of blood.
When we leave from our storehouses, we lose the protection. That's what you got to understand. Our protection comes with us having a connection, which was from the Levites, and in this last day through Yahweh Shah.
Right.
Give me Luke 12, 15 through 21. Because now we're going to talk about possession. And if you don't believe me, let's see what Yahweh Shah says about it.
Okay. The Gospel of Luke, chapter 15.
Chapter 12.
Salakia, chapter 12, and verse number 15. And he said unto them, take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consisteth not of the abundance of the things which he possesseth.
Right, because what he's saying is it's more than physical at this point. Right, keep going.
Verse 16, and he spake a parable unto them, saying, the ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully.
That's being blessed. So understand that you got something. The Lord has allowed you to get wealth. Keep going.
And he thought within himself, saying, what shall I do? Because I have no room where to bestow my fruits. And he said, this will I do. I will pull down my barns and build greater. And there will I bestow all my fruits and my goods.
Yeah. So he's saying he's not going to be charitable. He's not trying to find a way to help his people. He's just trying to increase his own fatness, right? Keep going.
Verse 19, and I will say unto my soul, soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years.
See, look at him. Keep going.
Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry.
Right. Now keep going.
Verse 20, but God said unto him, thou fool.
He's a what?
Fool.
A what?
Fool.
Keep going.
This night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then, Salakia, then who shall those things be which thou hast provided?
Right. Keep going.
Verse 21, so is he that layeth up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God.
Your whole point in getting your basket full is to get rich toward God. That's what your possession is. That's what your storehouse is. That makes sense?
Come.
All right. Let's go to the next slide.
You
got a precept?
You was making me think of a precept that I can't pull
Luke
it.
6. I know what you want.
Nah, it's that one in Proverbs about you leavest thy goods to a man that's more wicked than thee, or something like that.
That's Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes chapter 2. Or who knows who coming after you that he shall be a wicked man.
Yeah.
Ecclesiastes 2 26. It says, for God giveth to a man that is good in his sight wisdom and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner he giveth travail to gather and to heap up, that he may give to him that is good before God. this is also vanity and vexation of spirit. That may have not been it.
Yeah, no. It's a different. We may have to circle back, but
no. It's verse 18. Salakia. Yeah, I hated all my labor which I had taken under the sun, because I should leave it to the man that shall be after me.
Yeah.
Verse 19. And who knoweth whether he shall be a wise man or a fool? Yet shall he have rule over all my labor, wherein I have labored, and wherein I have showed myself wise under the sun. This is also vanity.
Right, because when you build up your storehouse, and your son may be like the man that's in this in this parable right here, saying that I should just build bigger barns. I'm gonna tear down what I have and build bigger, and give it all to vanity and vexation of spirit.
Facts. Solid precept on that one. Come. Let's get to the next slide here. All right, so in this one, we're going to go through the verses 6, 7, 9, 10, and 13. Let's talk about verse 6. Bring verse 6 out in Deuteronomy 28.
This is Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 6.
Bring it out.
Blessed shall thou be when thou comest in. Blessed shall thou be when thou goest out.
This right here deals with leadership, right? At least that's how I understand this, right? Let's look at this precept.
2 Chronicles chapter 1 and verse 10. Give me now wisdom and knowledge, that I may go out and come in before this people. For who can judge this thy people that is so great?
So when you're going out and coming in, that's your ability to go before different people with different understanding and have them to follow your influence, because you're doing right by the Lord. Right? Let's come on.
Verse 13 of Deuteronomy 28, and the Lord shall make thee the head, and not the tail. Thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath.
Right. Again, getting into that leadership aspect, right? Give me Psalms 18:40 and 48. What that leadership aspect of being the head and not the tail is direction. Leadership comes with influence, and that influence allows people to see where we're going, which way are we operating. Our direction is going to be these laws, statutes, and commandments, and faith in Christ, right? So that's what we are to do. Deuteronomy 28 is showing that our head was this law. That law was Christ embedded in here.
Right.
Okay? Let's get Deuteronomy 18 and 40. This is what happens when you got a godly man doing right, and the Lord makes him the head and not the tail.
It's the book of Psalm, chapter 18 and verse 40. Thou hast also given me the necks of mine enemies, that I might destroy them that hate me.
Right. So here's the interesting thing. Leadership requires you to make decisions that remove people who are not benefiting you. All right, keep going.
Verse 41. They cried, but there was none to save them.
Right, because listen, when you think about how the Lord operates, he tells you not to spare people.
Right.
You have to do what he tells you to do. Keep going.
Even unto the Lord, but he answered them not.
Right, because he's in charge. The leadership is being blessed here. Keep going.
42. Then did I beat them small as the dust before the wind. I did cast them out as dirt in the streets.
I did what was required of me. Keep going.
Thou hast delivered me from the strivings of the people, and thou hast made me the head of the heathen. A people whom I have not known shall serve me.
Right.
Verse 44. As soon as they hear of me, they shall obey me.
Right.
The strangers shall submit themselves unto me. The strangers shall fade away and be afraid out of their close places. Verse 46. The Lord liveth and blesseth.
Wait. Say that part again.
The Lord liveth.
Say it one more time.
The Lord liveth.
That has to be exalted, because our Lord does live. He always have and always will.
Right.
The Lord liveth.
Right. Going. He's the God of the living.
That's right.
Not the dead. Right. And blessed be my rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted.
Right.
Verse 47. It is God that avengeth me. And subdueth the people under me.
The Lord allowed the people to be subdued under him, right? Because again, he's blessed. He's blessed, and when he goes out and come in, he's the head now.
Right.
Verse 48.
And he delivereth me from mine enemies, yea, lifteth me up above those that riseth up against me. thou hast delivered me from the violent man.
From the violent man. Those are the heathens.
Right. And barbarians.
Look, Proverbs 16:7 says, when a man's ways pleases the Lord, even his enemies are at peace with him. Right. So that's something that you got to understand. When we're looking at the blessings of this thing, the Lord leadership, the leadership that the Lord gives that man, that woman, is going to be significant, and it's going to influence people, and they're going to want you to be in charge of them. They're going to want to follow accordingly. You don't have that type of strife, right?
Okay.
Let's go on to what the next one is. So now we're going to be talking about shield. As we get past the leadership, what verse 46 of the Psalms 18 talked about being the rock and the salvation, right?
Right.
Let's get verse 7 real quick.
Verse 7 of Deuteronomy 28. The Lord shall cause thine enemies that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face.
Right.
They shall come out against thee one way.
Right. Hey, I ain't gonna do what you say. Keep going.
And flee before thee 7 ways.
He's a madman. No, because he's doing what the Lord told him to do. He's not playing around here, right?
Right.
Come on. Let's get these precepts. Let's get Psalm 3 and 3. And I'll pull Psalm 27, 1 through 4.
Okay. It's the book of Psalm, chapter 3 and verse 3. But thou, O Lord, art a shield for me,
right?
My glory, and the lifter up of mine head.
Right.
Verse 4, I cried unto the Lord with my voice, and he heard me out of his holy hill.
So what he's saying is, listen, the Lord is our protector. Nobody can withstand you when the Lord got that protection on you, because we'll continue to read in Deuteronomy, and you're going to see what happened when the Lord take his protection away. Right? This is Psalms chapter 27, verse 1. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? You don't even get an opportunity to be scared anymore.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? When the wicked, even my enemies and my foes, came up on me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Though a host should camp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this will I be confident. He's being confident about something. Here we go. Verse 4. One thing have I desired of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I might dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to inquire at his temple, which goes back to your protection, your basket, your storehouse, going to have that connection there, right? Right.
Okay. And also on that, the Most High being your shield, him being your strength, your confidence, right? You have that confidence in the Lord, you're able to be strong in the Lord, and it bounces to that precept that says, I think it's in Timothy's, for God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, and love, and a strong mind, or a sound mind, right? So you'll have soundness of mind. You won't have fear,
right?
But you will be. This is a byproduct of the blessing, rather, to have to be of a strong and sound mind, basically, is what we're getting at.
You read the verse in Psalm 3 about him lifting up your head. When your head is lifted up, that means you know what you're finna do because of who you're doing it for. That means the Lord goes before you, like he did in the wilderness for the children of Israel, as a pillar by the day and a fire by the night. That's what that lifting of that head is. Right. All right, come on. Let's get Luke 10:19, right? And I'll get one, because this was when we talk about a shield also, I was thinking about this here. We're talking about not just being a protection from your enemies, from a hand-to-hand combat or to those that destroy you, but from an aspect of people who are intently trying to deal with you from a mental, emotional standpoint, right? Let's get that Luke 10:19 real quick.
Luke 10:19 says, behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents.
So when you think about a serpent, here we're talking about someone who is a deceiving individual. He giving you power to tread over those who will be deceivers. Keep going.
And scorpions.
Scorpions are those. So the whole point of the tail of the scorpion is to sting, right? This means these people are going to be naggers in your face. They're going to try to throw you off, put something in your way, and make you feel like, man, I got to deal with this. I got to deal with that. It's a constant affliction. It's a soreness. It's a bite from someone that has a level to get close enough to you to do that. But he's saying he's giving you power to overcome that. Why? Because you have protection from the shield, right? Is that it on that?
And over all the power of the enemy.
And over all the power of the enemy, right? Because you will be on top dealing with these people from the standpoint of being protected by the Lord's shield, right?
And then to finish it off, and nothing.
And what?
And nothing.
Some things.
Nothing.
And nothing
shall by any means.
By some means.
By any means.
All right, keep going.
Hurt you.
Hurt you.
That's powerful.
That's why you got to think about these laws as your shield. The Lord is the shield operating through the laws. And yet Yahweh Shai has told you how to do that. Right? He lived the perfect example. And Peter says he's left us an example, right? Let's get Revelation 9, 5. Let's see.
Book of Revelation, chapter 9 and verse number 5. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. I was thinking about this. And their torment was the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man.
Going back into what Yahweh Shai was saying here,
right? It's
a tormenting situation. These are your aggravators, your instigators, if you will, right? Give me Matthew 5 and 10.
Book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse number 10. Then Yahweh Shai then saith Yahweh Shai unto him,
what do you say?
Get thee hence, Satan. Get thee hence, Satan.
Right, because he's trying to let you know how to do this through these laws, right? Keep going.
For it is written, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve.
Right, because you got to understand that Satan and those that come with Satan are really haters. They're really those people just trying to knock you off your horse. Right. All right. Now we're going to talk about being a holy nation, right? So we dealt with work and prosperity. We dealt with the health and prosperity. We've dealt with sustenance. We've dealt with the leadership. We've dealt with him being our shield and our protection. And now we're going to deal with him, with us being a holy nation when we're being blessed. Let's get that in 9 and 10.
It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 9. The Lord shall establish thee an holy people unto himself.
So when you talk about holy, we're talking about being set apart. That means there's a visible mental and spiritual difference between you and other people.
Right.
There is evidence of you being completely set apart from other people that you come in contact with. This is why when we say in Ram, is by the Spirit, because by that Spirit, I know whom you are.
Right.
If your spirit agrees, then we walk in the same way. Your spirit don't agree, then we're not walking the same way. Right. Keep going.
As he hath sworn unto thee, if thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord thy God.
Remember the commandments of the rules of the Lord. Keep going.
And walk in his ways.
That means that you're doing what he's told you to do with intent. Okay.
And all people of the earth shall see that thou art called by the name of the Lord.
Right.
And they shall be afraid of thee.
They're going to be afraid of you because they understand what happened in Egypt. They understand the power that comes with the Lord walking before you. You are strengthened by the words of the Lord. You are strengthened by the rules of the Lord, right? Keep going on that. Let's get that precept. Exodus 19 and 1 Peter 3. Right? Because this is you think right here was the first time that he's mentioned it. When we get to Exodus 19, it was already in his mind about how he looked at us, right?
Exodus chapter 19 and verse 5. Now therefore,
all right,
if ye will obey my voice indeed,
right,
and keep my covenant,
Mm-hmm.
then ye shall be a peculiar treasure
A peculiar treasure.
unto me above all people.
He had already said this is what he wanted you to be. Remember, we read that in verse 1. But keep going.
For all the earth is mine.
No, you think we just had control over this little plot of land here? The whole earth was the Lord's, right? And we would have control of how things would be. We would be the ruling authorities. Why when the Lord returns, we'll return back into that state. At least the chosen elect will, right?
Right.
All right, keep going.
Verse 6. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation.
So remember, in heaven, in earth as it is in heaven, the seraphim stand before the Lord, the Most High, and they say unto him, holy, holy, holy. What you got to remember is this is the environment of these seraphim.
Right.
Oceans, whales swim in water.
Right.
Ants on earth. The nature of this particular angel was in the presence of the Lord saying, holy, holy, holy. That would be where we are.
Right.
We are going to be that for him on the earth. All right. Let's get 1 Peter 3:9. Because Peter goes back to reiterate the same point. And how would Peter know this lest Peter had come to this same understanding? Peter had been walking with the Lord, and Peter knows that the Lord was doing what he told him to do. And as a result, re-emphasizes that what we should be in the presence of these other nations, right? Let's get that.
It's the book of 1 Peter, chapter 3, in verse number 9. Not rendering evil for evil, or railing for railing, but contrariwise, blessing, knowing that ye are thereunto called,
right? That
ye should inherit a blessing.
Right. So what Peter is saying in here, in this moment, is you are going to go out and be distinguishable by your actions.
Right.
Right? You're going to be an individual that gives out blessings because you are that blessed individual, right? Come on. Go to the next slide. What is that?
All right. The curses.
The curses. Dun, 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 dun.
Right. It's like that moment in the scriptures in Genesis 3. I believe it's Genesis 3 where the chapter opens up and it says, now the serpent, right? And it's a total shift of feeling and environment and the ambiance, everything shifts, right? So what the brother just eloquently brought out was the blessings, right? And if you'll notice in your scriptures that the blessings are only a small fraction of the chapter, right? But these curses are very overbearing, if you will, in the sense that the Most High listed out several of them numerously to drive home the point that what's going to happen to you if you do not follow the commandments, and as it was so emphasized so much, if you do not diligently follow the commandments, this is what's going to befall upon you. Right?
So this is verse 14. And thou shalt not go aside from any of the words which I command thee this day.
So do not go aside from any of the words. Come on.
To the right hand or to the left.
To the right or the left, but keep straight, right?
To go after other gods to serve them.
And surely not to go after other gods, right? Keep going.
Deuteronomy 28 verse 15. But it shall come to pass that if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God.
So he's making himself clear, right?
To observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee. All
of these curses are going to come upon you if you do not follow the words of the Most High God, right? And surely, as it says in verse 14, especially if you go after other gods to serve them, right? Which our forefathers inevitably fell into, right? Wow. So a domino effect is a cumulative effect produced when one event sets off a series of similar or related events, a form of chain reaction. Right. So you have this domino effect, right? So the leadership falls, right? Then the shield of protection falls of the Most High, right? Then you become, your curses fall into play, right? Then you are stricken with poverty. Your economics are stricken, right? Your whole system of government, right? Health and posterity of the people, sickness and disease, mental anguish. Now you become lunatic, right? Dysfunctional families, slavery, exile, your whole sustenance. All of this has become corrupted as a result of the domino effects of the disobedience, right, of the people, right? The disobedience is what's amazing to me is the scriptures is actually very simple, right? Is it easy? Maybe not. But is it simple? Absolutely.
And it's not grievous.
It's not grievous in the least bit, right? It's simple in the sense that the Most High just truly just requires our obedience.
Right.
That's really when that's the whole conclusion of the matter, right? In all 80 books of the Bible, to what? Fear the Lord and keep his commandments. It's simple, right? But you know, our people, we, as the scriptures elaborate and exhaust the point that we're a wayward people, we're a stiff-necked people, or can be at least, right? And we're influenced by the other nations, the people around us. In the case of being in the land, they were supposed to be taken out anyway, right? But we fall into this disobedience, and it causes this domino effect, right? So going on and further into the curses, right? From the shield of protection to being enslaved by the enemy, right?
This is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 23. And thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth that is under thee shall be iron. So
the heaven above your head shall be brass, right? Meaning your prayers, it's going to be hard for your prayers to even be heard up to the Most High, right? And the earth under your feet will be as iron, which it's just like that curse that was rendered forth in Genesis, right? That we're going to have to toil and labor even further by the sweat of our brow, right? Keep going.
Verse 32, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people.
So, of course, in the transatlantic slave trade and the other slave trades, the families were divided, right? Going into that domino effect, right? The family structure is going to be broken apart. So now you have to see your son and your daughter be taken unto another people, right? Or taken to where he is no longer, or she is no longer in the safety of your protection, right? Keep going.
And thy eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all day long.
Because you're going to be grieved. You're going to be grieved that there's nothing you can do, because this is a divine punishment from the Most High, right? Keep going.
And there shall be no might in thy hand.
Because you're going to be powerless. Literally, when the shield of protection from the Most High falls, he literally strengthens you to protect your own house.
That's right.
So now your strength in itself has fallen so that you can't even protect your house, right?
Verse 36. The Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which over thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known.
So the Most High is going to sweep up the whole power structure. He's going to take the king, as we saw when Nebuchadnezzar came to take over the land. He took the king, he took the nobles, and he took the high exalted people, right? Keep going.
And there shall thou serve other gods, wood and stone.
So first of all, he's going to take your people. He's going to take us, the people, into a land that our fathers have never known, a totally foreign land. Not only that, are you in a foreign land, but you're going to now worship. You're going to now worship gods of wood and stone, just as it said that you should not do in Deuteronomy 14. Right.
I got a precept on that. This is the book of Wisdom of Solomon, verse chapter 14, verse 8. It says, "But that which is made with hands is cursed. As well it as he that made it, because being corruptible, it was called God."
So the thing that you make with your hands to be worshipped is not only is that cursed, but the maker of it is cursed, right? That's double fold, right? That's amazing.
Hold on. It says verse 10, "For that which is made shall be punished together with him that made it." Verse jumping down to verse what verse is that? Verse 21 in Wisdom of Solomon chapter 14. And this was an occasion to deceive the world. For men serving either calamity or tyranny did ascribe unto stones and stocks the incommunicable name.
Wow.
You're trying to make yourself, you're trying to have the wood and stone have the name of the Lord. And that's just wrong. It's idolatry, man.
Con. You make me think about that precept in Romans 1. The one that talks about, here we go. Start at verse 21.
This is the book of Romans chapter 1 and verse 21. Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were they thankful, but vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened.
So they fell off by the wayside and began to follow the corruption of their heart. Right, keep going.
Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools.
No, they became even more wise.
They became fools.
They became fools. Right, keep going.
And changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man, and to birds, and to four-footed beasts, and creeping things.
Right. So they took the image of God, just as they did almost a copy and paste of what they did in the Exodus when they compelled Aaron to make the golden calf. Right. They took the image of God, they took the name of God, and they tried to impose that upon a created thing. Right. They swapped the creator with the creation. Right.
Reading on, it brings up that point. I just jumped to it. Verse 25. Who changed the truth of God into a lie and worship and serve the creature more than the creator, who is blessed forever. Amen.
Right. So they literally changed the truth. They perverted it into a lie. Right. And worshiped these things and exalted the creature above the creator. Right. Let's keep going. Verse 41.
Verse 41, thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity.
Because your house is divided, right? Keep going.
Verse 43, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. In typo right there.
And this is what we're seeing today. The so-called white man and all these other high, powerful nations have subdued the earth. And we, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Indian men of Negro and Indian descent, right? We've been made low. Like, so if you want to see a picture of this, you can just literally look at our estate today.
Right.
You know, some of us, are able to gain positions of power and things of that nature and do things that benefit our people. But by and large, we are a pressed down people, a people of a lowly estate, right?
Come on. Verse 48, therefore shall thou serve thy enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee
keep going.
In hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee.
So you're going to have to serve your enemy, right? You're going to have to serve your... Not only are you have to serve another foreign power,
right?
But it's your enemy.
Your enemy.
Right? You have to serve your enemy, that person or that one in which you despise.
Right.
Right? He's going to be set over you, right? Your enemy is going to be set over you, right?
Right.
And not only that, you're going to be in hunger, you're going to be in thirst, and in want of all things, and you're going to have to go to your enemy for that, and we'll get to that even further down the line, right?
Right. We don't have we don't own any stores or any plots of land where we can make our food. We got to go to our enemy for that. And all the water supplies is owned by enemies.
Totally controlled.
We can't do that. In nakedness and want of all things, our clothes, everything that we need comes from our enemies at this point.
Do you know in most states, right, it is illegal to contain the rainwater?
Yes.
You cannot capture the rainwater out of the sky.
The authorities come and get you.
Now, that don't even belong to them. That doesn't belong to them. That's from the Lord.
Right.
But they said, no, it is unlawful for you to capture this rainwater that the Most High God has given you.
Right.
Right. That is grievous.
Insane. Yeah. That's
Furthermore, it says a yoke of iron upon thy neck.
Right.
There will be a yoke of iron upon your neck until he has destroyed thee. And of course, a yoke of iron is a mechanism of control.
Right.
Right. It could be physical or it could be spiritual. Right. Of course, when you hear a yoke of iron, you immediately get the image of, for me personally, I immediately get the images of being bound in chains,
right,
and being captured on slave ships, or being dragged or being subdued and brought onto slave ships,
right,
or on some slave passage where you'll be taken to a foreign land and be subdued by powers, right?
Right.
And some of which, you hear the grievous stories about the transatlantic slave trade and the Middle Passage, right? Where people were actually literally dying in bondage with yokes on their necks, right?
Yes.
Just as it says until he hath destroyed thee. I'm pointing like they can see.
Right.
Until he hath destroyed thee, right? So people were literally dying on the ships. Only a small percentage of these people would actually, or I'll say only a certain percentage of our people who were bound on these ships actually made the voyage, right? If they didn't die of sickness, they may have died of starvation. They may have died of just
overexertion,
or misery, or just heaviness of heart, right? Or they may have died. They just couldn't bear the toil that they were dealing with here, and may have actually jumped overboard, and just decided to just take themselves out, right. Verse 49.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation's whose tongue thou shalt not understand.
So when you open up these books, where these Edomite nations have broken down their voyages and their expeditions into the heart of Africa, right? These nations literally came from the whole northern part of the earth, right? Traveling deep into the jungles of Africa, into the kingdoms of Africa, for that matter, right? As swift as the eagle, right? And literally,
eagle.
Literally, and let me see if I can fix it to where the people can see it. So literally on the money of all these nations, the Greeks, the Romans, and the Americans, you see eagles. It's a little glare. You see eagles on all of the coins, right? Literally. That's astounding, right? But as these nations were traveling. As they were traveling into the lands to investigate and to try to get more gain and to see what resources and peoples they could exploit, right? They literally came from afar, and they were literally observing us, trying to observe the tongues that we were speaking, right? And we were looking at them. I only imagine that we were looking at them like, well, what do you want? Why are you here?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and so our people being of a gentle and free heart and spirit, welcomed them in, and they, of course, it was all to our demise. Right.
Even on that point, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. When the voyage of Christopher Columbus took place, he took people who understood the language, who can speak Hebrew, over, because they would not have understood the dialect of the voyagers in that moment.
So he knew that there was a people, and of course that's a whole nother topic, but he knew that there was a people there in which he needed to have some form of a translator, because there would be no way of communication, right? Keep going on that.
Verse 50. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the persons of old, no sure favor to the young.
You see, these people, man, when they came to subdue our people and not only in Africa but in the Americas as well, they wasn't concerned about if you were an elder or if you were a youth. We hear horror stories about even women who are pregnant,
right?
How they would slice the pregnant woman open, and they would put animals inside of the woman and sew them up, and it would. You can only just imagine the destruction that it was causing on the inside of the woman, right? These things are unimaginable, right? A nation of a fierce countenance, right? Literally showing no mercy, right? Which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young, right? Let's keep going.
Switch the view back. All right, verse 65. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall thy sole of thy foot have rest, but the Lord shall give there a trembling heart and a failing eyes and a sorrow of mind.
So you should have no ease, right? Even in the sense of, you may even think that, you may get a break one day to where, in the context of slavery, you may get a break in the sense of we may not have to work as hard today, right? But not so, right? Because the standard was how they described the standard was that you literally work till from what is it from can't see to can't see,
yeah.
Right? You literally work from before the sun cracks the dawn all the way until dusk when the sun falls, right? There is no ease, right? Even until this very day, some of us are even working those types of jobs, right? Where we literally have to sweat and toil all of the day just to make ends meet.
Right.
I thought you were going to say something.
No, go ahead.
In verse 68.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. By the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
So to be clear, and this is the classic that is we typically go to when we're demonstrating, especially on the streets, that when we're demonstrating the plight of slavery and the curses to our people. This is not to negate the far more further ancient history. When we were taken captive directly by the Greeks, where we were taken captive by the Romans and things of that nature, right? But we're speaking more of the near history because it's so much more close to us, right? We were literally brought over here on ships, right? And various peoples of the earth have been taken in slavery, but not a slavery of this nature, right? It's just not. It is unseen, like the scripture says, or the Most High says. This is a thing in which neither thy father seen, had not seen, or our nations of the earth had not seen, and neither shall it be seen after, right? And of course, in that day after, it will be double. It will be even more grievous affliction unto those who are subject unto us, right? Let's see here. Let's keep on going. From shield to slavery, continuing on. The sub-Saharan slave trade, right? Bring that out.
All right. So the sub-Saharan slave trade happened between 1000 BCE to 1900 BCE. The region occurred within Africa, involving enslavement and trade of African Israelites scattered, shall I say, people within the sub-Saharan Africa. Estimates of the number of people enslaved within Africa vary widely, but it is believed to have been substantial. The exact number is difficult to determine due to limited historical records, but this went on for 1,000 years down here.
I mean, and you can of course guess that we're talking about millions of people, right? Millions, right? And even in the day where we were ruling in Europe, right? And we were, we had the wars, and the power struggle with us and Esau in that day, right? We were still, we gained a certain measure of power, but still managed to be subjected, right? Under the rule of them. Continuing on to the indigenous slave trade.
So the indigenous slave trade in between time period of 1500 CE to present. So it's still somewhat going on. Region affected the indigenous people in Americas. It says, although indigenous indigenous slavery existed in other parts of the world as Salakia, of the world as well. The number of people, indigenous peoples enslaved varied across different regions and periods of colonization. It's estimated that millions were enslaved and subject to forced labor and exploitation.
Man, these people formalized an entire structure to where they created formal incorporated companies, right? The East Indian Company, right? In various nations did the same thing. The Dutch, right? The Germans, right? And of course the Americans, right? They literally formulated the British. Of course, the British is the greatest of them all, right? They established a systematic structure that came to be known, at least when we're in the context of the sub-Saharan slave trade. And I think the indigenous slave trade can fall in this as well, but it literally formulated a triangle, right, where they would come from Africa to America to Europe, and it would run that triangle back to Africa, right, where they would transport people from the shores of Africa to the shores of America, and bring indigenous people from the shores of America to the shores of Europe, and throughout the islands as well, right? These people would literally formalize a structure. It was literally a master plan on their part to subdue us down under their feet, right? Go ahead. Or the transatlantic slave trade.
Time period between the 16th, really from the 14th century to the 19th century, regionally, primarily involved the trafficking of African Israelites scattered again, people from West and Central Africa to the Americas. Over 12 million Africans were forcibly transported across the Atlantic, with millions dying during the voyage, known as the Middle Passage, due to the brutal conditions, disease, and mistreatment. Going back into what the curses said would happen.
The curses, it's literally like they're literally prophetic, in the sense that everything played out accordingly to how it would be said, and it's almost a understatement of what the court curses said. It's like, all right, you're gonna be under you're gonna be under a yoke of iron until you die, but it says it really subtly, as if that's really not, that grievous or that tremendous of a thing to happen, right? But we literally were being crushed to death, right? Literally, the generations, everything that is happening is the exact opposite of the blessings that were brought out, right? And it's unfolding in great magnitude, right? And these various slave trades, they vary in details, right? They vary in areas and in regions, right? But we literally are dealing with the same concept, right? You have the sub-Saharan slave trade, where literally the Arab nations and nations from the other Eastern nations are coming in and subduing our people, and to be clear, they were involved even in the transatlantic slave trade as well, right? But they were dominant players in that regard there, and it's just one big coordination. What is that in it's the echo of Psalm 83, right?
Psalm 83 verse. It's the book of Psalm, chapter 83, start at verse 2. For lo, thy enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. Verse 3, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones.
So the enemies of the Most High, right, the heathen nations, they basically took crafty counsel against our people, against us, right? And consulted together on how they could subdue us, right? Keep going on verse 4.
Verse 4, they have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance.
So they cut us off even from our heritage. When you go through all of these manners of subjugation, when you are literally have your culture whipped out of you, and you have You have different doctrines and thoughts that are contained in places like the Willie Lynch letter that are literally instruction manuals on how to formulate a submissive slave, right? This is the exact description of this. Right.
Verse 5. For they have consulted together with one consent, they are confederate against thee, the tabernacles of Edom, and the Ishmaelites of Moab, and the Hagarenes, and Gebal, and Amnon, and the Amalek, and the Philistines, the inhabitants of Tyre. Assur also is joined with them, and they have holpen the children of Lot, Selah.
So this is literally just a representation of all the nations of the earth, or the great powers of the earth, at least, coming together to subdue the Israelites, right? And why? Because of our disobedience. It could all have been so simple, right?
Right.
And of course, not to mention the Hispanic or / Latino slave trade, right?
Time period between 1492 to the 19th century. The primaries enslaved were indigenous people from the Americas, with the Spanish arrived at the Caribbean and later expanded their presence into Central and South America. They encountered and subjugated various indigenous society. It is believed that millions of indigenous people from the Americas were subject to various forms of forced labor, exploitation under Spanish rule.
Old Cortez and Fernandez, and of course the so-called great Christopher Columbus or Cristobal Colon, right? These men are just have a fierce countenance, or had a fierce countenance, as the nations would say, and their imprint is still visible on these nations, our nations, at least on the Americas, right? They've even given Christopher Columbus, of course, a day of celebration, of recognition, right? To honor him for his so-called good works, but these evil works, right? These people only acknowledge, they pick and choose what they want to acknowledge, right? They only demonstrate how he so-called discovered America, which he didn't discover if there were people here already, right? But they want to turn the blind eye to the rape, robbery, murder, disease infestation, the pillaging, the betrayals, and the leading into idolatry that they cause. They don't want to acknowledge any of that, right? But that is what happens when when the kings and the fathers of your people are brought under the rulership of another nation, right? Let's keep going. Sickness and disease.
This is book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 20. The Lord shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke, and all that thou settest thy hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me.
So all that you set your hands upon to do is going to be destroyed. Cat Williams in a stand-up in a stand-up comedy years ago, he had a joke where how in Salakia for my French, but he said how niggas are a wonderful people, but we had that perseverance where we keep trying shit, won't work, right? We continue to try things, right? And they just will not work, right? Keep going.
Verse 21, the Lord shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee, until he have consumed thee from off the land, whether thou goest to possess it.
So the Most High will make a pestilence cleave unto thee, right? A pestilence is a great disease, right? Well, I was starting to call out one more recently, but I don't want this video to get flagged. But the Most High will cause pestilence to cleave onto thee until he's consumed you from off the land, right? One of the leading causes of the destruction of the so-called black man and woman, right? You'll never guess what it is. Heart disease. Heart disease, right? We're usually going to say high blood pressure. High blood pressure, which is a disease within itself, but it all is in the family of heart disease, right? And with that, those things can be avoided, but our minds have been afflicted in such a way to where we're not concerned about our diets. We're not concerned about our exercise. We're not concerned about properly nourishing and caring for ourselves, because the knowledge basket that we have, right, has been consumed and taken away from us, right?
Facts.
It has been afflicted by these curses, which stem from our disobedience. Right. Let's keep going.
Verse 22. The Lord shall smite thee with a consumption, and with a fever, and with an inflammation, and with an extreme burning, and with the sword, and with the blasting, and with the mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish.
So you're going to be subdued with, and some of these can even be identified with sexually transmitted diseases, right? Where we've become a profane people, and we no longer honor the duties of marriage, right? Where our bodies are just treated as some sort of pleasure instrument, right? Where we go to and fro and do wayward and do the opposite of what the scriptures has said.
Right.
These things are repercussions or are effects to causes of what happens with us, right?
Right.
Let's continue on.
Verse 27. The Lord will smite thee with the botch of Egypt.
With the botch of Egypt, right? Keep going.
With the hemorrhoids. Hemorrhoids.
Right.
And with the scab. And with the itch, whereof thou canst not be healed.
Right. So we deal with all manner of afflictions, right? Our people are deal with probably some of the greatest percentages of skin disorders and manners of psoriasis and eczema, right? This is, you don't hear white people talking about things of that nature, right? It's our people who have been afflicted with this itch and this dryness of skin, right? And scabs all about us, scabs in our scalps, right? It's our people who have been afflicted with these things, right?
I got a precept for that.
Bring it out.
This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 3 and verse 24. And it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell, there shall be stink. And instead of a girdle, a rent. And instead of a well-set hair, baldness. And instead of a stomacher, a girding of sackcloth. And a burning instead of beauty.
So instead of a sweet smell, there will be stank, right? Instead of having a full, beautiful head of locks, there will be baldness, right? What you gonna say?
No, I'm just thinking about the word stank.
There will be a stank, man. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny because it's ironic there, because when we were to make sacrifices unto the Lord, he if they're done properly, he acknowledged them as a sweet smelling savior, right?
Right.
So it's literally the opposite of that, the rejection of a sweet smelling savior, and you get stank instead of that.
A defilement in his nostrils.
A defilement in the nostrils of the Most High, right? And which lines up perfectly with that scripture. Excellent precept, right? We didn't read verse 35, did we?
No. Verse 35, the Lord shall smite thee in the knees.
In the knees.
And in the legs.
In the legs.
With a sore botch that cannot be healed, from the sole of thy foot unto the top of thy head.
And our people, especially as we get older in age, when our bodies begin to fail us, older people, always, well, at least in the Southern Judite community, older people have this saying where if you laugh or you're not able to understand something that they're dealing with, they say, just keep on living, right? And so, even as the weather changes and their bodies are breaking down, their knees are beginning to fail them, their legs, where they're getting arthritis, and these things are afflictions and ailments of the body, right? That if we had stayed in our original estate, right? True, our bodies would fail at a point, right? But not in this same extent that they fail now, right? And it says literally from the sole of thy foot to the top of thy head.
Right.
Your whole body is afflicted with these ailments, right? Let's keep going.
All right.
Continuing on with the curses. Poverty, economic hardship. Right?
Verse 31. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto the enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them.
Go ahead. Okay.
Verse 33, the fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always. So what that's going into right here is that the cattle and the things that we have are no longer going to sustain us, because they're not going to be in the condition that's worthy of being eaten. Right. It's going to be a mildew on them, and then they're going to be taken and being used for other stuff, right? The people who are our enemies are going to come in and take our animal, take our cattle, and then make them sick to where we can't even have them.
Right. Furthermore, on that, you're in the illustration that's being had is that, the cattle, the oxen, those are instruments of not only that can be slain and eaten, but they're also instruments to keep your farm, right? Instruments or devices, or in the modern day, machines used to till the land, to keep and maintain other crops. So it's a further domino effect of the collapse of your entire house and your entire system, the economics of your community, the economics of your own house. Right. And it says in 33, the fruit of thy land and all thy labor shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up. Right. So of course, we weren't even able to enjoy the fruits of our labors, especially in this place, as our ancestors were enslaved, working from can't see to can't see. Right. They literally worked, and their labor profited another. Right. That we literally got no benefit out of. We were given the last. Right. What was left. Right. And had to make do with that. Correct. And it says, and thou shalt be only oppressed. Right. And crushed away. Verse 38, thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and shalt gather in but little in, for the locust shall consume it. So even the insects of the field, right, will come against you. Right? The Most High will cause this entire system of the earth to turn against you. Right? Keep going. Verse 39, thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but shalt neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worms shall eat them. The worms are going to destroy your crop, right? And it further says in a later verse that the Most High will restore these things, right? In the day that Yahushua returns, right? It made me think about that precept that says that with the pomegranate and the I have to pull it. We'll circle back to it. Go ahead on verse 40. Verse 40, thou shalt have olive trees throughout all thy coasts, but thou shalt not anoint thyself with the oil, for thine olive shall cast his fruit. Thy olive shall cast thy fruit. Right? Let's keep going. Verse 42, and thy trees and thy fruit of the land shall the locust consume. Continuing to be consumed by the insects of the field. Keep going. Verse 44, he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Right? And we were just reading that precept in Sirach about falling into suretyship. Right? Correct. Where it's a curse, or it's doom and gloom to fall into the debt of another, because you are not even able to maintain your obligations in which you set out to cover your own expenses and your own endeavors. Right? Keep going. Verse 51. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thine kind, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. So this enemy that comes against you, right? He's going to destroy everything, right? And lastly, you will be destroyed. And that is the fruit that we're dealing with.
Right.
It's literally the Yahushua said you can judge a tree. He said something along the lines of basically you can evaluate the type of tree that it is by the fruit that it bears.
Right.
Right. So we literally became a wicked and corrupt tree, right, bearing evil fruit.
Right.
That's literally what we became here in this situation, right? Mental anguish.
Verse 28. The Lord shall smite thee with madness and blindness and an astonishment of heart.
The Lord is going to smite thee with madness, blindness, and astonishment of heart, right? You literally will lose your mind, like as the scripture describes Saul, when Saul disobeyed the Most High, when Saul refused, right? He wanted to negotiate and not blot out the Amalekites like it was commanded of him. He wanted to do what Saul wanted to do. Right. And the Most High literally smote him with blindness, or Salakia. He literally smote him with madness. Right. To the point to where Saul had to have David, or Saul had to have another man come and play musical instruments to soothe his mind, to soothe his soul. Right. And the Most High literally, his spirit departed from Saul.
And to add to that point, the blindness in and of itself is a ignorance to being able to discern the will of the Lord.
Right.
And so what Saul did was he's trying to think for God when God said he would require obedience, or he wants obedience rather than the sacrifice.
Right.
So that blindness is also a spiritual ignorance.
It's total ignorance of what is to be done of the Most High, what the Most High requires of you, right? And it says astonishment of heart, right? Now we just talked about how heart disease and heart failure is a leading cause in the death of the so-called African American man and woman, right? So literally, your heart will be faint. Your heart will not be able to even take the various loads or the various strains and pressures that are caused that it should be able to commonly endure. Right. So it says, verse 28 again, the Lord will smite thee with madness and with blindness and astonishment of heart. Right. Keep going.
Verse 29. And thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in the darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy way.
Because you're blind.
Right.
Because you're not able to discern spiritually the plain things of the Lord, the milk of the scriptures, the milk of the commandments. Right. Keep going.
And thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee.
You will only be oppressed and spoiled evermore. You're oppressed in the sense that you're subdued by a greater power, and you are spoiled in that every time you get a foot up, you're robbed of that which you've gained. Right. Every nation or every city that the so-called African Americans have built in this place, from the Rosewoods to the Greenwoods to even, we can even talk about Gad, all of this, the cities and the structures that Gad and the Seminole Indians have put together. Every time we would get a foot up, every time they would prosper a little bit, oh, here comes the great powers of Esau, dropping bombs out of the sky, sending dynamite out of planes onto your cities and destroying everything. Or he will come through and contaminate your water supply. Right. Because literally every time you get a foot up, he spoils that which you've had. Right. Evermore. And no man shall save you. Right. Now that's a beautiful thing, right? Because we have hope that, of course, our dependency is not on man, but it's on the Most High. And that the Most High will in the day that we return unto him, he will hear our prayers and he will send a savior, which will be Yahushua Mashiach. Right.
Verse 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee.
You're gonna be called niggas. You're gonna be called African American,
Spicks,
Negroes,
wetbacks.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be called all manner of things. You're going to be called
you can be called black, and black was associated with negative and evil,
right?
You know,
a negative connotation.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You're going to be called literally, as the saying goes, you're going to be called everything except a child of the Most High God.
Correct.
Literally, right? And you'll gain that reputation to where now these nations will create political cartoons of you, looking abominable, looking dishonorable, mocking your countenance, making fun of your beautiful full lips and your wonderful, marvelous, kinky, curly hair, right? You will be made a mockery thereof, right? An astonishment and a byword.
Right.
Keep going.
Verse 66. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shall have none assurance of thy life.
You know, even today, right? It says, and your life will hang in doubt before thee. I'm not sure how it is in the other parts of the states, but in the South, there's a tendency in our cities to be what's called overly policed, right? And so even if there's it doesn't even have to necessarily even be a police car. It could be a siren of an ambulance or a fire truck. I don't know about you, Og, but sometimes it start makes your heart pump a little bit. It makes your adrenaline pump a little bit. And you haven't even done anything wrong.
Right.
You're minded and going about your business, but it's the fact that you're in such a vulnerable place, right? That you have no power to protect yourself, at least up to a certain extent, right? To where these people literally have us in doubt of our lives, right? To where in the fear of day and night, that we don't even have assurance of our lives, because we've been even further traumatized by seeing the assassinations and the murders of our brothers, our fathers, our mothers, and our sisters on TV. Right?
I'll even add to it, this doubt becomes so mental and emotional on you, is that even when you're not necessarily in the quote unquote iron chains now, you can see your oppressor. You can be on the street teaching, see your oppressor who's literally in charge of the work you do,
right?
And you get nervous. You start to think about how to overcome that situation, because they have the power to snatch the work from you, because you're teaching something that goes against the very breath that they have in their body, right?
Right, absolutely.
That's a doubt and a fear day and night, and you try to think of ways to overcome that, right? But you doubt.
Con.
Verse 67. In the morning thou shalt say, would God it were even. And at even shalt thou say, would God it were morning. For the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see.
That's so you can translate that in a few ways. You could say how a lot of brothers, we can hate their jobs and their occupations and say, man, I'm so ready to get off work.
Right.
Man, I'm ready to go hoop, man. I'm so ready to get off.
Do something that brings me pleasure.
And then when you get off, you say, man, I'm ready to go and get this shift over.
Man, I gotta get some more money.
You know what I'm saying?
And get back at it.
And then in a more solemn aspect, as our ancestors were working from can't see to can't see, right? They were literally just wanting to get through the day. They were literally wanting to just do what was required of them, to where they made the overseer, where they abated the anger or the frustration or the haste of the overseer and the master, so called, right? And that they were just able to get through and through, so that they can just press on, right? Dysfunctional families.
Verse 30. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her.
Can you imagine that? Right? No man wants to envision his new bride, or his old bride, right, for that matter. No man wants to imagine his wife to be subjected by another man, right? Especially forcefully, right? That's something where you literally have no power, because the shield of the Most High is no longer protecting you, right? In that regard, right?
Right.
Keep going.
Hold on. On that same point, this right here was also when they would come in, the overseer or your so-called master would make you watch sometimes.
Right.
And that would, and no power, you couldn't do anything.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? In the middle of the night, there's a knock at the door. You knowing you getting up to go knock to look at that door was equivalent to back talk to that master. In that regard, because they wanted to see your woman.
Right.
And it was nothing you can do. Right. In verse 30, reading on. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein.
Mm-hmm.
Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof.
Because we were building the houses of the master. Right. We were building the so-called big houses and the so-called plantation houses. Right. We even, of course, built the slave quarters.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But
even the White House.
Even the White House. Do you know that that there was a black man, so-called black man, who designed the layout of the city of Washington, D.C.,
mm-hmm.
Benjamin Banneker.
Yep.
Right? A brilliant man.
Mm-hmm.
Laid out the city and was not really able to enjoy the fruits thereof, not
mm-hmm.
to the full extent that he deserved.
Right.
A man who designed the most powerful city in the world.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's the same guy that was he learned to draw upside down because the white people didn't want to sit beside him. So he learned to draw his drawings upside down so that he could sit across from them.
Amazing.
Yep.
Right. And it says that thou shalt plant a vineyard
mm-hmm.
and shall not gather the grapes thereof. Now, of course, we know that that's the field work that we're so familiar with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of planting crops of cotton and planting crops of tobacco. And of course, as it specifically calls out the crops of grapes and mm-hmm. the crops of rice and
sugar
things
cane.
of that nature, sugar cane, right? And we're having to handle these things on a daily, but cannot enjoy the fruits of our labor. Right. We're left to eating the chitlins, right? We're left to eating the other manner abominations
pig
of the pig,
feet.
the pig feet, the hog maw, all of these abominations, right?
Catfish.
Where we were left, the catfish, the shrimp, the lobster.
As a matter of fact, speaking on that, in the lobster, I think up north, lobster was such an abundance, like in Massachusetts or whatever. It was considered to be originally part of the worst food out there, and you would go out on the beach and you would be able to get your food, but they was giving that to the slave. That's how they had to eat, and then it became a delicacy over time. But originally, it was not a delicacy.
And you see that how your oppressor will take something that they know is wicked
mm-hmm.
and play a mind game with you, switch it around and say, take this delicacy,
mm-hmm.
right? Call it a delicacy, even as it is a wicked, detestable thing. Right. Let's keep going.
We read verse 32, but again it says, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, mm-hmm. and thine eyes shall look and fail the longer for them, and all the day, and there should be no might in thy hand.
And so what you'll see is that many of these curses are repetitive, so to speak, right? Or intertwined, and they vary in details. It may say this piece here, and it may copy that same piece over here and keep the similarity of it, right? But what I think what the Most High wanted us to see is that, our people would fall tremendously
mm-hmm.
in our disobedience, to where everything would be collapsed and everything would be crushed when we fell out of his graces.
Right. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 54.
Mm-hmm.
So the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall lead.
This is a dysfunctional household, and furthermore, a dysfunctional nation. Right, to where your eye is evil against your brother,
mm-hmm.
right? Where we call it a mean mug,
right?
Where you have your face is twisted, or your face looks wickedly upon your brother, and you don't even know this man, and even the dysfunction of your house. Many marriages, over 50%, I think it's even a higher percentage than that. Over 50% of marriages fail.
Right.
literally. And that's in this entire nation, but that's especially of our people, right? Because you have the so-called gender wars where the men and women are pitted against each other by the powers that be, right? And furthermore, you have our people who where one Eve is in the ear of the other Eve, right? Or one Jake is in the ear of the other Jake saying, "Hey, brother, let's go do X, Y, and Z," and betray the trust of the relationship that you have with you and your rib, or the Eve causes the friend Eve causes the other Eve to betray the trust that she has with her husband, right? And this eye of evilness against our brother causes the entire society, the social structure, to collapse and cave in upon each other, right? Let's keep going.
Verse 55. So that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children to whom he shall eat, because he hath nothing left him in the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates.
So even in this is getting into like a cannibalistic aspect, right? Where I can't recall any modern situations of this off my head, but I know that there are examples in the scriptures themselves where our people literally were under siege and under subjection, and they were not able to gain access to food and to other aspects of nourishment and water and whatnot, and they would literally be subject to having to eat their babies, right, and you fall into this you I can't even imagine the lowest state of cannibalism, to where you have to look at your brother and say, man, if you die tonight, you know what I'm saying, you dinner too. You know what I'm saying?
Tough.
That's very tough.
That's that mental anguish, though.
Anguish.
Going back into that aspect that your mind gets so ratified and torn up that you can't even think straight.
Right.
That you thinking eating your kids and eating your brothers is an option for you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Verse 56 on that also says, the tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to be set to the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eye shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son and toward her daughter.
So it almost sounds just like how the Most High told Eve that her desire would be to her husband, right? In the sense of that she's gonna always want to buck up at the husband. She's not gonna want to maintain the order. She's not gonna want to be submissive. You know, you say the word submissive to your average, your average so-called black woman, or maybe your average so-called Latino woman, and she it's almost like you called her the B word or something, man. Like you're literally cursing her out, You know, when this is a holy thing, right? And the Most High calls us to order, but disorder will fall upon us, right? Keep going.
Verse 62. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of the Lord thy God.
So even as we are a fruitful people, right? You know, Pharaoh was even concerned that we were becoming too large of a people, right? That we were multiplying and populating so much, that we were reduced down in number, right? Even in the days of slavery in America, right? Our people were very fruitful, right? But you know, as much as we were producing, our people were dying off too, through the hard labor, right? Through being sold off, through being shipped out of the shores of America into other nations and other parts of the world.
That's I don't know if you can play that video.
Yeah, I was gonna try to pull it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's why when we look at what these curses have done to us, we've been in such a situation to where we're just distraught. Right. And so we got to get back to obeying the voice of the Lord, because this is what it looks like.
Right. Absolutely. Let's see here. Bear with me. we're gonna get through this video. Just
Right.
bear with us, families. It may be a little, maybe tough to watch, but
it really identifies the point of what having a dysfunctional family and how slavery just affected us so much, right?
Right.
Like this is a tough situation to even watch, right? We'll give you a little commentary of what's going on here. Thy daughters shall be given unto another people, thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them, and all the day long, and there shall be no might in thy hand.
Mm-hmm.
And Kizzy?
Oh, God, no. No, Massa, you can't sell Kizzy too. No, Massa, not my baby, not my child. Oh, Massa, no, not my child, not my baby.
She trying to plead
Massa,
for her child. He's taking a drink.
Right.
Massa, Peter, do anything you want to her. Anything, Massa. Tear the skin off her worthless hide. She an awful nigga to do such a thing, Massa. Please, Massa, in the name of Jesus, have mercy.
Look. The white man's Jesus.
Me and Toby, we give you our lives, Massa.
He can be saved.
Right.
But you can't. Look at him. He
40 years,
walking on her knees.
40 years,
right.
I served you, so that God for
Well, you were doing your
Hey.
job. She disobeyed the rules. She has to suffer the consequences. That's all there is to it.
Massa, please, Massa, I beg you, please, don't sell her. Please,
It's the same thing.
She's already been sold.
Look at that. Already being sold.
Oh, then, Master, please sell me in Bellwether.
Look.
But don't split up the family, Master. You ain't never been that kind of man. Please, Master.
Go get him.
Mr. Tom Moore owns Kizzy now. Mr. Odell will take her away today.
There ain't nothing you can do. There's no might in the hand.
baby.
No!
Watch this.
Quick. Poor Mammy Bell. Oh, no!
Yeah, tied up like an animal.
A rope around her.
Yeah.
Please, please, help me. Please. Help me. Mama!
Nothing you can do about it because there's no might. Never seen it again.
Please, no.
But that goes into the shield of the Most High,
Protection being gone.
the protection of the Most High being gone, and the strength of us, of the men of the house. That brother, you know, and this is of course just a movie, but that brother, you could see that it hurt that he had no power to save his daughter.
Right. No.
Right? Which plays directly into the curses.
Right.
Which plays right into, you know, what was being brought out here today. So with that, you had anything else you wanted to add?
No, I just want y'all to go back, look at these curses again.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you're getting familiar with what we said we would do, and then what has actually happened. So when we see our people, we have a way to be able to communicate, because the scriptures say that this will be a sign up on you forever. Right? Until forever, you know, it's technically conditional, but because when Yahweh Shah comes, we will be returned to our proper estate. But what you got to remember is that this is something that we have to understand is what was a part of the covenant. What we were supposed to do, we didn't do, and we fell into these curses.
And Salakia, to circle back, that precept I wanted was in Joel chapter 2, verse 25.
Bring it out.
And this is when the day of the Most High, when the day of the Lord is here, and the Most High will restore us. Right? It says, "And I will restore you the years that the locust hath eaten, and the cankerworm, and the caterpillar, and the palmer worm, my
Right.
great army which was sent among you.
Right.
So this echoes right back to the curse, several different verses that called out specifically where the worm would destroy your crop,
Right.
where the locust would destroy your crop, and that you would be powerless. And the Most High says, "My great army, which I sent among you." So in the day of restoration, the Most High will restore all these things unto us, and all things will be made new in that day.
Come.
So if nothing else, with that, we're gonna say shalom. Yahweh Shem Yahshua Barakatham. Yahweh Shamar Latab Hashem Yahweh. Shalom.